everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and in this featured product video, we're doing something very different. We're going to be focusing on Neoprene mats, custom-made, third-party mats from Lizard Den. I got in contact with Jacob, who owns this family-run business, and this business essentially aims to obviously immerse you more in the game that you're playing solo. As you can see, a number of different mats here in this pile. We've got Journeys in Middle-earth on top there. We got some Mansions of Madness underneath that, Everdell, some Arkham Horror LCG. There's even more down below, Mage Knight and things like that. And at the very bottom, we got Champions. There's a bunch in here to go through, bunch. And what I'm going to aim to do in this video is to just show them off to you to see whether or not these are potential solutions, not only to immerse you more in your game and make the table presence even nicer, but also have a functional solution in terms of organizing your games too, because that's really one of the big benefits of a nice neoprene mat. Now, one thing I'll make note of is that some of these, of course, actually a chunk of these, actually have official versions of mats released into the wilds for some of these games. So for instance, Marvel Champions, we all know, has neoprene mats coming out every other day for all the heroes, as well as the larger mats for expansions in the core game and things like that. And they probably will continue to do so. However, that's one of those things you'll notice as we go through is why should you bother checking out something like this that's custom made when there's official ones out there? Well, because what ends up happening at Lizard Den, from my understanding and conversations with Jacob, is that basically he's purchasing the game, as you'd expect, and he's playing the game, and then he's getting to a certain point where he understands the movement of the cards, where the cards should be, and maybe the best layout for these particular cards on a mat. And then he's putting that all together in this custom mat. So really he's aiming for these mats to be as functional as possible and to make the most logical sense in terms of positioning. And sometimes, ironically, the third-party person or just the fan of the game itself can actually sometimes come up with a solution that's better than the official one. And that's kind of what I think has happened here. Plus, on top of it, not only the functional side of things, he's got mats that you just can't get anymore. So a good example of that is going to be the first one I want to talk about in this pile, sitting right on top. This is Journeys in Middle-earth, and you guys probably guessed that from the second you look at this mat. Some of you will remember that during the pre-order for Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, if you pre-ordered, you would got 5 of these mats, very similar to this, but very different in terms of his artwork and style and everything else. But you got 5 of them for free just for pre-ordering. However, if you missed that window and you didn't pre-order, and I'm one of those people that I can raise my hand, and the only reason I even have 2 of the official mats for the game is because someone was very, very kind and sent a couple across to me, and I still to this day appreciate that because they were extremely hard to track down, and everyone that did pre-order and got them held on to them with a clenched fist and didn't want to let them go, and I can understand why. But in this particular situation, it's nice that there is a third-party company out there or a fan-made solution out there to actually go ahead and grab some neoprene mats that no longer exist in the wild. You can't get them anywhere else. So it's pretty cool. So some of these mats, as I mentioned, you're going to know right away when you hear the game name. You'll go, that's already got neoprene mats. I'm already set. I'm good to go. Some of them you're going to go, wait, there's no neoprene mat for that. I would love that one. There's going to be other ones you're going to have a battle in your mind over what's better, the custom one or the official one. That's really what this video is all about. Just show you some cards on each of these mats, each of the different mats that I have here, and hopefully help you make an informed decision as to whether any of these mats will suit your needs. Now, as I mentioned moments ago, I have the official Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth mat. As you can see below, though, for this custom solution from Lizard Den, you have their version of this particular mat. And of course, they can't use all the official lingo from the mat on the official version, like the logo itself and things like that. But I will tell you one thing right now that I notice. Not only is the neoprene mat 30 millimeters thick, it looks like it's already double as thick as this one below. This one is much thinner and much more loose, a lot lighter. Also, the coloring on this one is very dull. Very dull. It looks nice still, it's good, but when you put it up against this custom one, the custom one's blowing out of the water, and you'll also notice that the actual layout incorporates more slots for a very small difference in terms of its sizing. It's really not that much bigger, but it has a whole other slot. And as you can see, there's just as much gaps going on in between everything here. So the overall layout has been probably more well thought out overall. And so I can tell you right now, putting these side by side, I'm pretty impressed. There's going to be a lot of people that didn't get a chance to get those pre-orders in for Journeys in Middle-earth that enjoy the game and want to have some way to organize it. And not only on top of that, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but there is artwork behind this as well, straight from Lord of the Rings, whereas this one has nothing. So I mean, right out of the gates, this was one of the ones that I saw on Facebook that I immediately went, I need to have those. So to help you make an informed decision on this particular mat for Journeys in Middle-earth, let's go ahead and populate some cards on it. Here's an example with some cards actually on the mat. The mat definitely looks really nice in combination with the cards and the art style of the game. Next up, we have playmats for Mansions of Madness. This is a huge plus because there are no official mats for the game. You can see here this mat is going to keep all your cards organized, including your investigator card here in the middle, elixir, spells, common items across the bottom here, along with unique items, some condition areas, as well as damage face up and face down, and the same for horror. Here's a look at the mat with some cards from the game right on it, help you give you a better visual representation as to what it would look like in front of you. So you got the investigator card here, we have some common items here, some unique items right here with some spaces available still, some condition areas, the elixir and spells. Over here we have the damage face up and face down to give you a good idea as to how that would work, and the horror face up, face down. Now the one thing that's interesting to note is you're probably wondering more so about the face up ones because those are the ones you'd be referring to quite often through gameplay, and needing to see those is important. Of course, if the mat actually had a spot for every single face-up card you might get, that could become a problematic situation where the mat would just become massive. The nice thing is that you do have some space above here, which you technically could use if you started getting multiple horror or damage that had to be face-up and you need to reference them all the time, or you could even stack them here and just have the top section just kind of above on each one, so you could reference each one if you memorize them, or have the bottom actually showing where the actual effect is occurring. Either way, I think this mat still organizes everything really nicely, and there really is no way to keep track of the damage and horror you will get inside of Mansions of Madness in a organized way beyond this, unless your mat is massive. Moving right along to Everdell, we have two different designs for this one. Each of them functionally has a 5x3 grid, which makes up 15 cards that you can place on this mat. There is no official playmat for Everdell, so this certainly goes ahead and fills a void on the table in terms of being able to organize things more easily. Now again, being able to create a 5x3 grid on the table without a playmat is completely doable. This is a nice to have item in my opinion, but I really do think that the artwork behind each of these playmats really gel nicely with the Everdell artistic style. So if you're looking to even bolster that game in terms of its visual appeal on the table even more, which is already got some serious table presence, these mats are really going to add and not take away from that table presence. So I'll show you this first one. As you can see here, we're going to jump to the other one. Here is the alternate art for this Everdell playmat that you can also pick up if you like this style better. Now let's go ahead and throw some cards on these mats and see how it gels with the artwork from the game. Here are some cards from Everdell placed on the 3x5 grid to give you an idea as to how these cards look when gelled with this particular mat. Let's go ahead and place these same cards or some other ones on the alternate art. Here are some cards on the other artwork style of this playmat. I think these things gel extremely well, and again, as you can tell, if you want to boost the presence of the game on the table as well as have a nice easy grid to keep things together, these are some pretty awesome looking playmats. Next up, for all you investigators out there that enjoy Arkham Horror, the living card game, you're going to want to check out these 5 different style playmats as I go through them. This is the first one in terms of the artwork you can see behind it, as well as the functional layout of the different areas of the mat. We have the victory display, which is all the cards that will be put over to the far top left-hand side. You've got your threats down here in the bottom left. Over here you have other assets and your investigator off to the side. on the main board. It's going to be focusing about everything that your current character has equipped, as well as the draw deck, the discard pile, and permanent cards. And of course, just above the investigator mat, you've got engaged enemies, where all the enemies which are engaged with the investigator will sit. Here's an example of an investigator set up on the mat. We have Jim Culver, and he's actually to the right. As you can see, the investigator space has him sitting over here to the right. I'd prefer to have his investigator card actually on the mat itself, and as you can see, there's lots of room up here in this top section. You could easily place the investigator card instead of placing it off to the bottom right, as is indicated on the mat. Either way, you're good to go. You can put it up here, you could have it more central, you could even have it just over here above the deck. That's probably where I would place it, and it still doesn't block any of the beautiful artwork behind it. The cards, the artwork, and everything jive with this mat, and I really do like the layout of how it all sits. Now, if the look and feel and design of the last playmat didn't interest you, then there's an alternative artwork style here with this one. The same structural or functional layout is here, but everything artistically has changed as mentioned. So I'll go ahead and place the cards back on the mat so you can get an idea. Here's an idea of what the mat looks like with some cards placed on it. I still have Jim Culver sitting in the top right hand corner. Technically, it would be over here, which is fine if you want to see all the artwork across. I think that's the best spot. I like to put my investigator card though. You'll also see that there's some areas here to house some really important resources and other things around your character. You've got, of course, your health, sanity, clues, and resources is the last one. Here is the third option for Arkham Horror LCG. We'll go ahead and place the same cards on the mat to give you an idea. Here's an idea of what the mat looks like with cards on it. I really do like the fact there's 5 different visual looks to this particular Arkham Horror LCG playmat because, well, there's a lot to work with. And the next one coming up is actually one of my favorites. And I like this one so much because of the fact it actually has a weapon on the playmat, as well as actually having a compass in the top right-hand corner. This really makes me feel like I'm looking at the investigator's desk itself. And here's a look with all of the cards laid on this mat. Again, blends in absolutely awesome. And here is the final option for Arkham Horror LCG here, and we'll go ahead and populate this one with cards as well. Here's what the final mat looks like with cards placed. The one thing I don't have placed is my investigator card itself. You'll notice on this particular mat, we've got much larger areas here for resources, horror, damage, and clues. Nothing wrong with that. I really like it actually, but it will stop you from most likely putting your card up here if you're going to go ahead and put your resources across the top, as well they take up a little bit more space than the other ones, where the 4 of these are typically shuffled to the right or shuffled to the left with some empty space on either side. But remember, the mats, all of them have an official spot over here in the bottom right hand corner of your investigator card, and you're not always going to need to reference the card. So for me, I just like having it somewhere up top. That's just some kind of weird personal preference on my part, but it's completely unnecessary. If you're looking for an area or one of these mats to put this card up, this may not be the one you're looking for, but one of the other 4 will certainly do. Moving right along to another beloved LCG, one that began my journey with solo gaming. This and one other game there's actually a mat for in this video. This one is Lord of the Rings, the living card game. Many of you guys are familiar. This game came out in 2011. There are official playmats for this one, but this one is really built to be functional. As you can see at the very top here, we've got different areas here for all the engaged enemies that are going to be coming up against you. Your threat counter has an area to sit. You also have your ready and exhausted states for your heroes across the 3. You've got your ready and exhausted for each of your allies. There's actually lots of spots down here for attachments, as well as an additional ally here. The draw deck, discard pile, more allies off to the right if you need it, and your victory display to the left. Something I want to draw your attention to, if you haven't noticed already, is the beautiful artwork behind the structure of the playmat itself. It is going to gel perfectly with all the different artists involved in the game to date. And the other thing I want to make mention of is the fact that I really love this ready and exhausted state. Really just being able to shift your card up for ready and down for exhausted. The reason I like this so much is when I was playing without a playmat and just playing my 3 heroes side by side, I used to essentially tap them, almost like you do in Magic, by exhausting them to the side. What was really annoying about tapping them was the fact that if there was anything on them or anything like that, you're basically shifting the whole card sideways sideways and you're bumping the card beside it and you're kind of restructuring your heroes every so often because of them turning sideways, or you're using some type of token or chip to represent the fact they're exhausted, this is just really simple. You just put them in the position they're in based on whether they're ready or exhausted. I just like it. It's easy, doesn't need anything extra to do, and it's a nice way of doing it. And if you don't like this particular going up or down type maneuver or function, you can just simply use the space that's intended just to put the cards and use whatever you're used to in terms of tokens or turning them completely sideways or whatever you like the best as you see fit. The next playmat I want to show you is one for Gloomhaven. You can see here you've got space for your modifier deck, your modifier discard. You've got areas here for your conditions, which I really like to be able to put them in here for reference. Hand and discard, character board, your active cards, lost cards, level 7+, level 9, and you've got 1, 3, and 5+ across the bottom. Your battle goal, which is an important thing to keep close to you, you just want to reference it every so often, will be sitting right here, and then everything that's going to be equipped on your character along the bottom. Here's how the mat looks with some cards placed in certain slots. Now, not everything is populated, but this gives you a rough idea as to what it would look like. The one thing you're going to notice right away in the center there's the character board is not sitting correctly. Why is that? Well, upon further inspection, Jaws of the Lion, I had forgotten, has a vertical alignment to the characters. So it's important to know that the layout of this mat is better suited to Gloomhaven versus Jaws of the Lion only because of the fact that the artwork here is vertical instead of horizontal. In Gloomhaven, everything is turned like this in terms of the character, so it would look and feel perfect and sit perfectly within this mat. Now, again, as you saw, if it's sitting vertical, it doesn't break the mat or cause any issues, but it doesn't have the right spot. So if you're trying to get a mat for Jaws of the Lion, maybe this one's not the one, but if you want it for Gloomhaven, it certainly fits the bill. Moving right along to the next playmat, this one excites me a lot. This is the other one of two games that kicked me off in the solo gaming hobby, Mage Knight and Lord of the Rings, the card game. Now, ironically, these are the two games that I'm not going to be showing you any cards on the mat for, but I don't think that's going to change your opinion of these mats in any way, shape, or form. I really think that the design of this mat is really, really nice. And as a solo gamer, just having one of these is a huge benefit. You've got areas here for your tactic cards, hero cards, deed deck, your discard pile, a nice play area in the center there. You've got spots for everything, and usually you keep track of all this in your own way. I've seen people actually play Mage Knight and set it up exactly the way the setup guide has you place things on the table, but I've also seen some alternative setup styles, so it's just nice to have something structured. Plus there's quite a bit of things to keep track of with your character. This mat seems to do a great job of that. And last but not least, I want to show you that giant mat at the bottom for Marvel Champions. This is a very nice one as it's going to have areas for everything. It's got multiple ally slots, multiple upgrade slots, support slots, your hero card, draw deck, discard. The other thing it carries over from the Lord of the Rings living card game mat in terms of its design is that ready and exhausted state again, where you can go up or down. Again, not needing tokens or anything else to keep track of what is ready and not ready. So that's a huge benefit, especially for a game where you're going to be constantly, just by glancing down at the game, needing to know who is ready to go, who's been used, that type of thing. It can be a big time benefit and really speed things up when things get pretty wild. Again, the artwork behind it definitely matches everything you'd expect in terms of Marvel, so I do like that a lot. I also like the fact it's more of a darker tone, so it really makes the rest of the structure of the map pop. But as I mentioned before, there are official versions out there as well, so you'll have to compare this one to those official ones to determine which one suits you in terms of its structure. But I really like what they've got going on here, plus the addition of the stun, confused, and tough areas for cards. Here's a look at the Marvel Champions playmat with some cards placed in the different slots. You'll notice right off the bat, it's super easy to determine what is in a ready state and what's in an exhausted state. So if you were curious earlier on when I had the Lord of the Rings living card game playmat set up and I didn't actually put some cards on that example, now you can see what it actually visually would look like. In either case, you can visualize that. And I think it's really useful just at a quick glance to see which ones are ready to go and which ones aren't without needing any other way to track them. And of course, turning cards sideways and putting trackers on them and everything else could work and does work, but I really like this. I really do. And the ability to just kind of shift it down and use the words themselves on the playmat to let you know that it's ready to go, I don't know, there's just something about it I really like. And that, my friends, is going to wrap up this featured product video for a number of playmats from Lizard Den. If you want to check out more mats beyond what you even saw in this video, you can go to the Lizard Den site itself. I'll put a link to that in the description below, as well as the pinned comment. And if you didn't see any actual mats in this video that interest you in terms of the games they related to, that's where you want to head in order to find more games, because all the mats are not listed in this video, as that would be an insane amount. I was focusing mainly on the ones that interest me the most, and I really do think that these mats add a lot to some games that don't even have official mats, so they're filling a void that is basically vacant. There is nothing there to organize the game as you play it, and other ones have mats, but the structure and the changes in terms of how you use the mats are different than the official version, and that's really nice to see that creativity there. So hopefully this is an informative video for you to make a decision either way on these mats. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.